Good afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining. This is a webinar to talk about our upcoming data analytics bootcamps that are going to start on February the 12th, 2024. So my name is Bernard. I'm one of the admissions managers with Generation UK and Ireland. I'm based in Dublin in Ireland, and I work across the two countries. And today I will talk to you about our data analytics bootcamps, what a career in data analytics could look like, what the application process is for these bootcamps starting on February the 12th. And then finally, you will have the chance to have to hear from somebody who's graduated from one of our programs before, and also an employer that we have, one of the employers that we've partnered with. This webinar is live, which means that you have the opportunity to engage. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, if you write anything in the comment area, like on the bottom right of the screen, I'll be able to see that and I can respond to that live. So if you have any particular questions or queries, comments about the bootcamp, or anything in particular that you want me to cover at any particular point, or anything that you want me to give more information about at any point in time, if you write something into the chat, I'll be able to see it, and periodically I will go back to it just to make sure that I'm covering all of the relevant information that you're looking for. And again, because we are live and because you have access to the chat, please be respectful of each other and please be kind to each other in there. So, quick overview of what we will be doing today. This webinar should last about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Some of the information on the slides will be a little bit dense, or the slides will be quite busy, but I will go through them relatively quickly because I want to be respectful of your time. But because this video is on YouTube, you can go back, the link will stay the same, so you can go back and rewatch, or you can pause the video at any point and read through the slides yourselves. And you'll get a copy of the video as well in the next couple of days. What we will do today is I will introduce Generation as an organization. So I'll talk a bit about Generation across the world, so Generation Global, and then I will talk specifically about Generation UK and Ireland. Then I will give a bit of an insight into the data sector and where does the role of the data analyst sit within that sector, and what does our bootcamp look like? What will you learn if you are on the bootcamp? Role in the data, and then finally, I will talk about the next steps in the application process. So how do you get from today, attending this webinar, through to interviewing or completing all of the eligibility stages for the program, right up until getting started on day one. And then finally, at the very end, I will I'll invite our employer, guest, and our graduate to speak for a bit about their experience with working with Generation and being on bootcamp and what happened next. So Generation, as an organization, we were founded in 2015 following a piece of research by a consultancy company. And the research found that on one hand, there are a lot of industries, for example, the data industry, where there are a number of roles that organizations and companies struggle to hire for. These are roles that start from junior level or entry level and progress really well into high-paying or technical, into high-paying roles or really technical roles. And there is like a skills gap or a skills expectation for these roles. And so companies can struggle to hire because there just are not enough people trained up to fulfill these functions. And then on the other hand, there are lots of people who are currently unemployed or underemployed who would be able to do these jobs and would succeed and really enjoy doing these jobs, but they lack particular skills in order to start in these roles. So there's a skills gap, and there's maybe a barrier to entry to these industries. So there's lots of people who are facing underemployment or unemployment who want to work, but they just don't have the required skills. And on the other hand, there are lots of companies who want to hire people, but they just don't have the access to a workforce that is trained in the particular skills that these jobs require. Generation fills that gap. So we were founded in the US in 2015. And since then, some 8-9 years ago, we've expanded to over 300 cities across 18 different countries. And actually, this map of the world is a little bit out of date. We now have Ghana is starting just this month in Africa. Generation UK has been around just over 5 years now, since the end of 2018. And Generation Ireland is 3 years old. Since 2015, over 100,000 people around the world have graduated from our programs, and we've made connection with over 3,000 employer partners. The last stat on the bottom right is a UK and Ireland specific statistic, and it's one that we're really proud of. And that is that we keep track of employers and graduates after somebody graduates from us. We keep contact with you closely for 6 months to help you in your job search. And then after you find work, we will continue to check in with you every couple of months just to see how things are going. And we also check in with employers who hire our graduates and ask them questions about how things are going. And this statistic here is that 84% of graduates outperform their peers in productivity and quality outcomes. So what this means is, for an employer who takes on one of our graduates, we will ask them, are you happier with our people who come from us versus people who come to you from other sources, such as straight from university or from apprenticeships or from graduate programs? And employers have told us that in 84% of cases, our graduates are outperforming everybody else that they've hired from all other sources in productivity and in outcome. And that statistic shows us that our boot camps or our training style really helps people to not only know the technical skills, the hard skills, but also the soft skills and the employability skills that really help you outshine and outperform other people in the workforce, and get that additional edge when looking for work and when starting roles. Here's just a small example of some of the employers that we have connections with across Ireland and the UK. And you'll notice that while a lot of these companies are tech companies or tech adjacent, such as, say, Salesforce is there, or Infinity Works, or Just Eat, a lot of them are also ones that you might not really associate with tech or with data. Say, for example, the Royal Opera House is there, or some local authorities or governments are there. What's interesting is that depending on an organization, really big organizations will have data teams and will have tech teams within their company. So starting off your career in data is a really interesting way to not limit yourself in terms of the type of organization you could be working for, because you could end up working in almost any industry within the data team in that industry. So in the UK and in Ireland, we are based in, or we're focused on 6 regions in particular. In Ireland being in the Republic itself, mostly focused in Dublin and commutable areas to Dublin, and then also a bit in Cork and Limerick, Galway, and then 4 regions in the UK, in England, being Manchester, Yorkshire, London, and the West Mids, and then in Scotland within commutable distance of Edinburgh and Glasgow. These bootcamps that we are starting on the 12th of February are open for application to anybody who is living in Ireland, in the areas that I just mentioned, and in our 4 areas of focus in England. Right now, it is not open for application for people based in Scotland, However, we will look to offer this program for Scotland again later in 2024. So basic facts being that it starts on the 12th of February 2024. It lasts for 11 weeks. So graduation is at the 1st of May. And it lasts, the training is every day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So it is considered full-time training. There are kind of two main reasons that we provide full-time training at Generation. The first being that we want to get you trained and into the data sector as soon as possible. If you think about our bootcamp, the amount of content and the quantity of information that you would need to learn, it's about the same amount as you would need to do for a Leaving Cert subject or for an A-level. But instead of doing it over the course of a whole year or a year and a half, you are doing it over the course of just 11 weeks. So in order to cover that content as quickly as possible and get you from where you are today through to where you want to be in the future, we want to condense that, and we do it full time then. Second reason is that for some people that do our programs, you either have not worked recently because maybe you took time out of work to help your family, or you've just really struggled to find work recently, or maybe you've never worked. And we find that sometimes employers can be a little bit hesitant to take people who do not have recent employment on their CV. But if somebody is able to do almost full attendance or full attendance of one of our programs, an employer feels more confident and more comfortable to take you on because you can show with evidence that you attended our full-time program, and so the employer knows that you are more than capable of doing full-time employment once you are with them. So before I talk more about the data sector, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what the benefits are. So our training is free. In the UK, we are funded partially by the Department for Education. This program is partially funded by Microsoft and a couple of other corporate funders. And then in Ireland, we are split between public and private funding, but it is completely free for you. We will never ask you for any money. And you receive a qualification, which I will talk about at the end as part of the training. So we'll put you forward for a relevant industry exam as part of this training. The training is live, so there is a live instructor who is there, who is an expert in the data industry, in the field, and they will teach you everything that you need, hard and soft skills in order to succeed. In addition to an instructor, you will also have a mentor assigned to you, and they will be there to do group and one-to-one mentoring and goal setting with you. And I'll talk about mentoring later on because it really is something that we believe in and that we think helps our graduates to succeed. I will talk also about connections with employers later on. So as you prepare to graduate and after you graduate, you will have the opportunity to connect with employers who are hiring in the sector and have the chance to interview with them. If you do not have a reliable laptop or you don't have an internet broadband connection that is strong enough to be able to join Zoom and messaging for 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, we can loan you a device. So we have a number of secondhand refurbished laptops and some internet dongles that we have on site that if you need one of them, we can arrange to ship to you and you use it for the duration of the program and then you send it back to us after you graduate. And then finally, if you are receiving any sort of social welfare benefits, in Ireland being with Intrio and in the UK with Universal Credit, you should be able to continue to receive these. So in the UK, if you are successful at getting on program, I would issue you a letter and you would provide that to your work coach or to your job center. And that should ensure that you continue to receive your benefits. In Ireland, there are a couple of criteria attached. You need to submit, I think it's like a training waiver, or the document is called something similar to that. There's more information on our website. So if you're based in Ireland, please go to ireland.generation.org and go to the data analytics program page. And if you scroll down, there's a couple of paragraphs there about continuing to receive your job seekers allowance or your Intrio payment while you are with us. But similarly, I would issue you a letter if you are successful, and you would fill in a particular form, and that should guarantee that you continue to receive payments, assuming that you're eligible. So this bootcamp, it is instructor-led, so it is a live classroom environment. It is taught over Zoom with some other pieces of software in addition, taught in a classroom environment with other students. And yeah, if you need a laptop or internet, you can continue to, or we'll be able to send them to you. In addition to doing just the technical stuff, in addition to like upskilling you in the exact technical skills that you need in order to work as a data analyst, we also do a good amount of soft skill work. So I'll talk about that kind of balance between hard and soft skills later. And we also provide employability support. So we will work on your CV, we'll work on your cover letter, we'll do some mock interviews and interview simulations with you. We'll help you get connections to employers that are hiring, and if you find work, we will help with transitioning into that employment. I'm just going to pause here because I see a question in the chat. Giuseppe, you asked that one of the steps to apply to the course is to take a Python test. Is it a necessary requirement? So yes. Python is a requirement, like a basic fundamental in Python is a requirement for joining this course, just because you will be using a lot of it once you are on program, although not as much as like if you're a data engineer, you will be using a decent amount of Python while you're on program. We don't expect you to be a Python expert. We do expect you, however, to have just a fundamental in Python. I'll talk about this a bit more later. So in the application portal, you see all of the different steps to complete in order to finish your application, and one of them is the Python test. When you click to go to the Python test, the welcome page for the test has a couple of different articles and a video to watch. And if you don't have any Python experience in the past, that's okay. You will, when you go to the test, please read all of the articles carefully, maybe make some notes and watch the video, and that should give you enough information to get a good score in the test. So we're not expecting you to be like a full-on programmer who's built who has like built their own programs or published onto GitHub in the past. We just want to see where you're at the moment, and make sure that you kind of have the basic competency around Python. And Ilara, you write in response to Giuseppe, you did the test. It's pretty easy if you take the first 2 free lessons on Udacity, and we give you the link. Yes, there is a basic Intro to Python program course on Udacity, which you'll find the link in the application as well. If you do those lessons, you should be all good. Another good resource is W3 Schools. Cool. And here's a summation of the info again. So the start date is the 12th of February. Bootcamp length is 11 weeks. Schedule Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And the cost is free for you. Cool. In terms of eligibility, and I see there's a couple of questions in the chat, and I'll come back to those in a couple of minutes. So for people that are living in England, and I'll talk about Ireland in a moment, the eligibility in the UK, these criteria are set by the Department for Education, and they are quite strict about these eligibility criteria. So in order to be eligible for this program in the UK, you need to be aged over 19 years. So you need to be 19 years and over. You need to have lived in the UK for at least 3 years, or have lived in the EEA, which is the European Economic Area, for at least the past 3 years. You need to be currently not in education, training, or work. You can be doing a 0-hour contract or some part-time work, and you can continue that as long as it doesn't conflict with class hours, and as long as you feel confident that you can balance training plus work plus everything else in life. You need to have the legal right to work and live in the UK, and you need to be available to do the program and ready to start a full-time job on the other end. And I'll talk about how to prove this eligibility later in the presentation. For Ireland, you need to be over the age of 18. So in Ireland, we can take you from the age of 18 and above, and there's no upper age limit in Ireland. You can apply at any age. Not in education, training, or work, except for 0-hour contracts, have the legal right to work and live in Ireland. So if you're an Irish citizen or an EU citizen, no problem. If you are from outside of Europe, we are only able to take people on stamp 1G and stamp 4 visas, and then available for 11 weeks and ready to start a full-time job on the other end. So I'm just going to pop into the chat for a second. So Anna, you ask about having 2 kids at school. You collect them at 4. You'd miss class from 3:30 to 5, but you would cover later. So we have a mentor call. You might have seen it in the application stages. One of the steps is after you've done the group task and after you've done the higher view and the Python test, and you pass through to the final review stage, we have a step called mentor call. And in this mentor call, we would discuss things like this. So like I said, we believe in mentoring, and we believe in individualized approaches to make sure that everybody has a good chance of success, and that the playing field is level for everybody. So we have equity across the classroom. So in a situation like this, it is possible that we may be able to accommodate it. It's the kind of thing that you would talk about with the mentor and just discuss the practicalities of how this could work, what it could look like. The mentor would be able to let you know about what sort of workload you might be missing and if it's feasible to catch up with study later. And in this instance, I would also encourage you to think, while it might be okay for us to accommodate it as part of the studying, on the other end, after you graduate, would you want to continue to do this if you got into full-time work, or would you need to come up with another solution, another creative solution to kind of balance work and life on the other end? Cool. And then Charles, you say, is it possible for somebody currently working a part-time job to partake in the program? So like I mentioned in the eligibility, it's something to talk to the mentor about again, and it's something that we would want you to kind of consider. Do you feel comfortable that you are able to balance doing our training and also doing this work, and then also doing all of the other bits in life that you need to, so caring for yourself, any family members, and just whatever else you need to do in life? So technically, yes, you can continue to do your part-time work as long as it doesn't interfere with class times and that you feel confident that you're able to balance everything else. And Hanan, you ask about what kind of documents to prove that you have the right to work and live in the UK. I will touch on that later. Before I get to all of that, I have a question for the chat. As we get into the question of what does a data analyst do, how does the data sector work, where does a data analyst fit within the data sector? Question for everybody watching, how much data do you think will be created in 2023? I mean, at this point, it's how much data was created in 2023. If you want to just pop in what you think, A, B, or C. Let's see, David, you think we have C. So do we think that across the world, do we think that A, B, or C? So do we have a number with 15 zeros, 18 zeros, or 21 zeros? And I see there's actually a bunch of A's, B's, and C's all across the chat. So moving in, the answer was actually C. So the answer is 128 zettabytes of data were created this year. And I'm just going to make this a bit bigger. The data growth is happening exponentially. And 2023, we topped out at about 120, but you can see by 2024, we're going to approach 150. And then 2025, we're even approaching 200 zettabytes of data. And this is getting faster every single year. I think I saw a stat, I think it was 2100, it might have been 2200, but by that point we're going to need more. The amount of data that we will have generated will be more than atoms in the universe, which is ludicrous. But the point is that data is being generated at a rate that is becoming exponential, and we need people to manage this data and to analyze it, and it's an industry that is only going to keep growing. It is an industry that some people are afraid that AI might impact, but it's the kind of industry where instead of AI making the industry irrelevant, AI is going to make the industry even more relevant, but potentially the role of the data analyst may change somewhat. As in your role will become more important in that you would be like using the AI to manage larger streams of data, and do that more effectively and in a way that does storytelling better. So your role as a data analyst is now a good time. So you've seen the data is growing. There's a shortage of people with relevant skills to deal with it. So it's future-proof. The average starting salary, and this is starting salary, is about £25,000 or about 28,000 euros, and that's junior entry-level roles. But this career path goes all the way up, and the salaries match you as you continue to progress into more senior roles. And companies will invest in your ongoing development because, again, there's just a lack of skills. So what would you be doing? I'm going to go through this really quickly, and please do just pause, or you can come back to this later if you want to spend some more time looking through it. In short, the data analyst, quote unquote, analyzes the data. Other roles within the data team will manage entire data projects, or will kind of manage the data itself, where it's held, how it's accessed, whereas you as the data analyst, your role is to identify data, collect it, and move it. Kind of do fixings of it and figure out ways to tell narratives and tell stories with your data. So you'd be using tools such as Excel, Power BI, and others to create visualizations and create ways in which to understand the data that is being generated. So making graphs, dashboards, and reports to give, to display the analysis that you're doing and to give insights. And then within like your team and then your function within the larger organization, your role then would be to present the findings to the business and then help add value by making the business be able to make better decisions or to spot trends. So there is a bit of coding and programming, mostly SQL and Python along the way, just to help with managing the databases. So yeah, and then at the bottom, there are the huge databases. The data engineer is the one who kind of manipulates that and brings it to you, who interprets it, extracts it, and gives insights to the broader company. So within a data team, the data scientist is kind of the person who oversees projects, and they're kind of the lead of the whole team, and they will bring projects from start to finish, whereas then the data engineer is the person with the most technical competency, and they're the person who kind of manages the data, make sure that the data is accessible and stays on top of programming. And then you as the data analyst, so you help people from across the organization interpret the data and put it in a way that is easier to analyze and work through. So your skill very much is statistics and communication. So you are interpreting and you are putting the information in a way that is understandable. So it's a really strong and good balance between technical knowledge and then also people skills and communication. And then this is kind of a really brief overview of where the role could go. So starting at the top, learning your core skills, building a little bit of a portfolio to kind of demonstrate the skills that you know, getting into your first role, and then you can kind of move in any direction where you can like become more specialized, going down, so getting into a specialist role within a particular industry or sector, getting into a senior role, and then moving into potentially consultancy, or on the left of the screen, moving into like from junior to mid-level to senior, and keep going up within like a general company or a generalization company. Or alternatively, if you wanted to get more technical, you could move across to the right-hand side of the screen, becoming like a data scientist, so which is a little bit more like a project manager, and then moving into a more senior role there. And Giuseppe, you've got a quick question there about, is financial analyst the same role as data analyst? In many ways, you are fulfilling similar functions. However, you would be within different, within different organizations with slightly different like modus operandis. So like a financial analyst works with particular data sets. I think they would be considered more niche than a data analyst, but you're using lots of the same skills where you're taking broad swaths of information, you're identifying trends, and then you're kind of turning those trends into a narrative in order to inform decision making. And then you can see on the top right, and apologies to anybody in Ireland that these are the UK figures, but you can kind of multiply by 1.2 or 1.3 to get the Irish figures kind of. So entry level, you're looking at 25 to 30,000 pounds, and you can see within 10 years, you're up to 40 to 50,000 pounds with progressions of experience. So that's a really broad overview of data analytics sector and what working as a data analyst could look like. And again, at the end of this presentation, we have a recording from an employer who works in a data analyst role, and also from one of our graduates who graduated from this bootcamp and got into a role with the Stockport City Council. And she'll talk about her time on the bootcamp and then what her day-to-day looks like now as a data analyst. So you'll have the chance to kind of hear from them, and they will give a much better explanation than me of just what is this role, how does it work, what does a day-to-day look like, and how would you go from learning the skills in the classroom in the next 12 weeks through to getting your role in the industry. So I'm going to touch briefly on what life in the classroom looks like. So this is the same slide that I had earlier, that delivery is online. And the reason that we do online delivery also then is so that we can just serve people from across the countries. So if you're in Ireland, you will be, the classrooms, there's maybe 25 to 27 people per classroom. And in the UK, you will be divided mostly by region. So it might be two regions together, for example, London and the West Mids together, and then Manchester and Leeds together, or Yorkshire. And then in Ireland, it would just be all of Ireland together in one classroom. And the benefit of teaching online is that there's no commute. So you could be based in Manchester and be in a classroom call with an instructor who's, I don't know, in Bristol, and other classmates who are in Leeds. And that allows us to teach in a way that facilitates different living situations, or facilitates people who live maybe farther away out of where we could get a classroom. Instruction is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It is led by an instructor or a teacher. The sessions are group on Zoom with some self-study, especially as you move towards the exam. We use a messaging platform called Slack, which is kind of like WhatsApp, but like professional or business focused. And then again, we can offer a laptop and internet access if necessary. On the employability side, you can see here, as well as building you up in terms of the hard and soft skills, we also build you up on the employability skills and offer some support around that. Somebody on YouTube just asks whether we count attendance. So yes, so attendance is, we do expect you to have over, I believe it's 85% attendance to graduate. But even if attendance wasn't like a requirement of graduation, it would be if you missed more than like 10-15% of classes, it would be incredibly difficult to catch up just because of the volume of information that is covered, and us trying to make sure that everybody is able to keep up. If you do have to miss, a couple of days because you're ill or for whatever other reason, that's kind of one of the functions of the mentor. They will check in with you and make sure everything is all right, and then put together like a plan to help you catch up as you are rejoining in the classroom. Cool. This is just a really brief overview of what the day-to-day could look like. So days starting around 9 a.m. with an opening or stand-up where everybody checks in, doing it to some technical content, having a break, doing more technical skills application, lunchtime, behavioral skills, and then employability support 3 to 4 p.m., and then some office hours and one-to-one work, and then the day finishing at 5. And again, as always, please feel free to pause at any point if you want to have a deeper look at any slide or ask any questions in the chat. This is kind of, and I'll go into our curriculum in some more information, in some more detail on the next slides, but this is a brief overview of like the blended style of learning that we do, where we're not just giving you the technical skills in order to fulfill this job description, and those there you can see on the screen, but we're also upskilling you in your soft skills and your mindsets. And these are the transferable skills that you will bring from your previous experience and your previous just life and education, and also the skills you'll pick up with us that make you a really strong employee on the other side, and a really strong individual when it comes to doing interviews and starting off in new roles. And you can see those are some of the ones that we lean in on are your communication skills, proactiveness, teamwork, adaptability, personal responsibility, growth mindset, future orientation, and persistence. And then in terms of the technical skills, we would look at some of what we do is data analytics fundamentals and programming languages, overview of the data pipeline, data analysis and visualization, testing, and project management. And deep dive into the curriculum here. So weeks 1 to 4 is very much getting you up to speed, giving you the fundamentals and the essential information to get in on the ground floor. So the behavioral skills being communication, orientation to detail, the mindsets around growth mindset and persistence, and then introduction to workplace communication collaboration, and then some data analytics fundamentals and database design. So then you'll be building on that in the from weeks 5 to 7, where you'll be doing SQL, Python, overview of data pipeline, visualization, and an interim project. And then finally, in the last couple of weeks, you'll be working more on visualization, testing, project management, and a final group project. And you can see that for the first couple of weeks, you're entirely on Zoom, mixture of whole class and then breakout rooms. And then as the weeks progress, you'll be doing about 60% of your time on Zoom in the middle, and then 40 to 50% of your time on Zoom towards the end, with the rest of the time doing independent group work and building your own skills and working on Power BI visualizations. You can see that there is kind of continuous assessment all the way along with 2, 4, and 3 assessments per chunk of the course. And this is this continuous assessment, and then also the group projects and the interim projects kind of give us a really good standing on which to show that you are learning the information really well and that you're keeping up with the information as it is delivered. Some more information about the curriculum breakdown. I will let you pick this up in your own time with pausing and reading through. But the goal is that our curriculums are designed specifically around what employers tell us and employers advertise are the exact skills that they are looking for in this job description. So when we think about data analysts or a data analytics role, these are the exact skills and responsibilities that employers expect of people applying for these roles. So these are what we teach. As you are finishing your training, we will prepare you to take an exam from Microsoft, being the Power Platform Fundamentals. Power Platform is a collection of applications that Microsoft has developed that enables data analysts to visualize, analyze, and present data. And we prepare you to take the exam that shows that you are certified in using these apps. These are some of the industry standard applications. And so having this certification is a really strong indicator when you're applying for roles that you're able to work in this sector. And we prepare you for the exam, and we cover the cost of you taking the exam. So you gain this additional qualification as part of our training. So I've talked a lot about the curriculum and the technical skills and kind of the practical side of it. I also want to talk briefly about mentoring. So in the classroom, there is the instructor who's delivering the content and delivering the technical content the same way that a teacher would in the classroom. In addition to them, you'll also have a mentor assigned to your class. A mentor is somebody who is specializing in adult learning, and their role is to make sure that you are able to keep up with all of the learning that is happening and balance all of the learning with everything else that is happening in life. In addition, they will help with some of the behavioral skills and employment skill sessions. And they will also be there to offer any pastoral care and well-being supports. And also they will help with your goal setting. So before the bootcamp starts, just going through these 3 blue boxes at the bottom. Before the program begins, you will meet with your mentor twice. First, as part of the application stage, you will meet with one of our mentors to do a session where we discuss any support needs that you may need on the bootcamp. And then if you're successful at getting an offer for the program, you will have another one-to-one meeting with the mentor where you'll start to talk about any goals you might want to set for yourself while you're with us, and then also delve a bit deeper into any additional support that we might be able to offer you. During the bootcamp phase, so while you're with us on the training, you'll have dedicated one-to-one sessions in your diary to meet with your mentor. You'll continue to set those personal goals and keep on top of you to check that you're able to tick them off and breaking them into SMART goals and getting them done. They'll continue to supporting your employment readiness, and they'll also signpost you to services if required. So if something comes up that is different or larger than what we're able to support you with, the mentor is a really fantastic resource who knows about what the further support landscape or the further charity or health landscape is around Ireland or the UK. So they'll be able to let you know about other organizations or services that are available for you. And then finally, in the placement phase, which is what we call what happens after graduation, they will give you support getting ready for interviews, building your confidence, and doing group and one-to-one sessions with you. Couple of FAQs, and then I will touch on the questions that I see there in the chat. What happens if you get ill? So there is a way for you to log an absence. So if you know in the morning that you're not feeling well, you're not going to be able to join the program, there's just a Google form you fill out just to let us know that you're not joining that day and when do you think you might come back. And then the mentor will check in with you about catching up. And materials are available. So recordings will be online and handouts will be online. So what financial supports are available. You can continue to receive any benefits you're on, so universal credit, or you'll need to apply for to continue to receive your job seekers allowance payments in Ireland. If you don't have a laptop or Wi-Fi, we have refurbished devices we can share with you. What happens if you don't get a place on the program? We'll give you some feedback on why that was, and we can also signpost you to other organizations such as the Princess Trust. So Hanan, you have a question about workspaces available. Yes, so sometimes there are people who don't have a suitable study space at home. So either you just don't have a quiet place or an appropriate place at home to spend Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 online, which is fine. And we still want to support you to join the program. So depending on where you're living, we do have access to some WeWorks across the UK and some co-working spaces in Ireland. So depending on where you're living, we will look at options of finding workspaces for you. They'll be in like a co-working space. And yes, for the duration of the program, we will try and find somewhere safe that is with reliable internet for you to work. Giuseppe, you ask if the whole course is online. Yes, the whole course is online. Potentially, there might be an opportunity for something in person. So I know that the most recent IT support bootcamp that we ran in Ireland, they had an in-person graduation at the Microsoft offices, just because Microsoft were a funder and they wanted to kind of do something special for the graduation. So something like that might happen, but otherwise the course is entirely online. And if something like that does happen, we would help to cover the cost of your travel. And then Mito, you have a question about graduation. I will touch on this in the next couple of slides, so your question will be answered later on. So expectations during the bootcamp or during the training. So to graduate from the bootcamp, we expect you to have minimum 80% attendance. We expect you to have your camera turned on and to engage in the classroom environment. So this isn't like a university lecture where you just sit and listen. This is active, involved training. So the instructor will be teaching you, and then you will be responding and interacting to cement the information. We require commitment to the 11 weeks of the training, willingness to participate in our style of learning. So, for example, going into breakout rooms to do group work. Embracing the challenges of the program. So it is challenging. It is difficult to get through this amount of information in this amount of time, but the rewards are tangible on the other end. For people who have caring responsibilities or kids at home, we do encourage you to think about childcare plans. So just knowing what your childcare plan is while you're on the program, and then having ideas about what it could look like after you graduate if you get full-time work. And yeah, just have ideas about that to chat with the mentor when you have your pre-program check-in. And then please just continue communicating with us, keep in touch during and after the program, and let us know what you're up to. So we want to support you to succeed, so please reach out if you have any concerns about any of the above. And I'm just going to pop in the chat the email address for this program is Data Analytics Program at generation.org. So if you have any questions about the webinar or about the training at all at any point, like about your application, if you send an email to this inbox, one of my colleagues will pick it up. So the placement phase, and this kind of should answer your questions, Mito. So what happens after you graduate? So you start 12th of February, you do 11 weeks of training, it is the 1st of May, and you are coming up to graduation. We will support you for 6 months after you graduate or until you find your job. And there are a couple of different ways that you could find your role. The key difference to this side is that it is driven by you with our support. So in the bootcamp, you are getting information from us, and we are sorry, my brain just died for a moment. We are leading the training. But on the other hand, after you graduate in the placement phase, it is driven by you. So we're going at your pace. There are kind of two different ways in which you could secure employment as and after you graduate. Those are either one, self-apply, or two, through an opportunity that we source. So in every region that we work in, so in Ireland, for this bootcamp, in Ireland, in Manchester, in Yorkshire, in the West Mids, and in London, in every region, we have people who are working whose role it is to contact employers, make connections with them, tell employers how we work and what we do, and when we are having people graduate, in what sectors. So there will be employers who know about this bootcamp graduating at the beginning of May, and they will be aware that we have this many people graduating and looking for roles in data analytics. And those employers that we know that have data functions that have open vacancies will be able to invite you to interview. But on the other hand, we also help you by teaching you how to look for jobs and how to manage like LinkedIn and job boards like Indeed or Monster, how to find relevant roles that are interesting to you. And then as you apply for them, supporting you if you get called up for an interview, how to do the application, making sure your CV and cover letter are good, etc. So 6 months of support. We will meet with you one-to-one. You will have your own employability coach or placement manager assigned to you that you can contact. We will continue to have schedules, so workshops and check-ins with people on our side, where we will continue to upskill you in your employment skills, employability skills, and have check-ins with you. You'll have a graduate hub and access to LinkedIn Learning to assist with your job search. We'll connect you with employers that are hiring. So we'll send you like job descriptions, roles that we know that are open, and you can let us know if you're interested for applying to them or not, based on, I guess, the salary, where the location is, some of the working conditions, and so on. So our commitment to helping you is that we will work hard to find employers who have opportunities we can secure for you, let you know what those opportunities are, and invite you to apply for them, and you can choose to interview them for those roles or not. We'll also signpost you to the best job platforms so you can job search for yourself and help you as you apply and find roles that are relevant for you. And again, please feel free to pause and read through any of these slides yourself. And then on the other hand, your expectations are that you'll be the driving force of your job search. So we will encourage you to apply for a minimum of 5 jobs a week, if not way more, and keep a track of what you're applying for and how they're all going. We expect you to continue to check in with us and just be open about how you're doing and how we can support you. So next steps on this program. I'm just going to stop and look at this question in the chat. So just a question on the application process. So meeting the requirements is not a guarantee of being offered a place in the program. What would make one more or less eligible than others? So this is correct. We do receive more applications than we have spaces. So this bootcamp, we are running 1 classroom in Ireland and 2 classrooms in England. And every classroom is about 25 students big. So in Ireland, we have 25 spaces and more or less, and in the UK, we have more or less 50 spaces for this bootcamp at this time. The reason that the application stages, the reason why we have, I guess, so many application stages, because there are a good number of them, is so that we can get a really clear picture and like a fair overall picture of where you've come from, why are you interested in applying to this program, and why do you want to start your career in the data sector. And then some competency information like the Python test or the aptitude test, like the logic test. And all of this information together allows us to choose a classroom that kind of best works together. So we do have like certain cutoff points for the Python, like we expect certain grades. And ultimately, we will offer the 50 candidates who are, I guess, most closest to the job market, or the candidates who we feel we will best be able to support, because our offering is not suitable for absolutely everybody, and that's why we do signposting to other organizations who are more suitable to help people in, I guess, certain situations. So if you have applied to the program and for whatever reason you are not accepted, please do not take that as any fault of your own. Please do not take that for any fault of your own eligibility or any fault of your own technical skills. We are able to provide constructive feedback, and we will give some signposting to other organizations that may be able to help at this moment in time better than we can. But talking about next steps, the application process. So today is the 19th of December, and the Data Analytics Bootcamp information session is happening right now. Group tasks will start on the 22nd of December, so that is this Friday. We will have our first round of group tasks. I guess I'll talk about each of these steps in a little bit of detail in a minute, but I'll just run through all of the cutoff dates. Then higher view interviews, those are ongoing, so there's no hard, as once the application's opened, you're able to do your higher view interviews. We will stop processing new higher view interviews around January the 18th. So please do your higher view interview as soon as possible, or if you haven't done it yet, please do it by the beginning of January. The mentor calls will happen starting on the 9th of January. Offers for the program will be sent out around the 26th of January. Class induction will happen on the 31st of January, and then the bootcamp will start on the 12th of February. Talking about each of these steps, I'm just going to check if there is, the next step talks about each step in the application process. So this is kind of what the timeline looks like. Even though the bootcamp starts on the 12th of February, which feels like a very long way away, it's some 7 weeks away. We are closed around at the end of the year. So from the 22nd of December through the 2nd of January, generation is closed. And so that's why we have some extra time at this moment in time to start with the group tasks and the higher views. And then the mentor calls will be happening in mid-January to get the offers out by 26th of January for 2 weeks of class induction. And those 2 weeks allow us to have our mentor meeting with you all again, to have whole class inductions, also to send any laptops or Wi-Fi dongles that we need before the bootcamp starts on February the 12th. So looking at all of the steps in the application process, so these are not in perfect order of what you'll see in your application, but the steps are the same. So there's aptitude assessment and eligibility documents. So aptitude assessment, or I think it might be called logic test, is a timed test in the application portal. A lot of the questions are, some of them are math questions, some of them are like object rotation questions. The goal is to kind of have an idea of your current logic skills, and it is a little bit challenging because it is timed, but please just do your best, and we hope that you do really well. And then the eligibility document upload, and I've talked about those eligibility docs already, and I'll talk a bit about what you can upload to prove eligibility for the program. Then group tasks, so those are starting this Friday, and they'll continue through in January. Group tasks last for about 30 minutes. They are live on Zoom. You will join a Zoom call with me or one of my colleagues where we we run through a task that I will give you. So it's not going to be a data task, or it's not going to be coding or anything like tech related. It's going to be hopefully fun, but it's like a problem solving task that will rely teamwork, problem solving, and communication and prioritization, which are all skills that are vital as data analysts. So those are happening starting this week, and those will continue in January. Last about 30 minutes, and they are live, and you'll be able to book for a time that suits you through your application portal. Then there's the Python task. It is 10 questions. It is multiple choice, and you can brush up your knowledge beforehand on the welcome screen. The HireVue interview is an interview. So it takes you to a portal in an application called HireVue, where you will watch a welcome video that asks you a question, and then you will record a video answer to the question. The HireVue is a little bit weird when you do it first, because you are just answering questions, just you with your laptop or your phone. And so it's odd because it's just you on your own, but the upside is that you can do it whenever you want. So you can do it right now if you log back into your application portal, or you can do it over the winter break, or at midnight, or early in the morning. You don't have to wait until somebody from Generation is free and available on Zoom. And also you can re-record your answers if you're not happy with the first time that you answer. The questions for HireVue are based around your background. So what's been happening in your life before you've joined this program. So education, experience, any other major life events. And then the questions will be around, why are you interested in working in the data sector? Why are you interested in doing this bootcamp? And have there been any particular barriers to employment that you have faced trying to get into this sector or into other bits of employment? So please don't be nervous. We are not expecting perfection. We don't have like a list that we X or tick based on what you answer. It is really just, we want to get to know you. Why are you applying to this bootcamp at this moment in time? And making sure that you would enjoy this bootcamp and enjoy the career on the other end. So once you've passed through the eligibility docs, the logic task, the group task, and the Python task, and the HireVue, your application will be reviewed. So somebody from our team will watch the HireVue and review it together with the group task. And if you're successful at that point, you'll be passed through to a mentor call or a mentor conversation. This is 20 minutes one-to-one with one of our mentors on Zoom, and they will ask some questions about what life is like at the moment, with the goal of seeing if there's any additional ways that we can support you or anything extra we can put in place on our side to give you the best chance of success. Once everybody who has passed through has had the chance to do a mentor call, and we have a hard cutoff of the week of the 26th for this. The offer letters are then processed to the successful candidates, and also the people who have not been successful will be notified. And then we'd invite you to accept your offer, and the bootcamp starts. There's a typo here. The bootcamp starts on the 12th of February, not on the 8th of January. So eligibility documents. So what can you upload to the portal? So in order there are kind of two main things to prove. The first is your right to work in either Ireland or the UK, wherever you're applying. And the way that you would prove this is you would either upload, if you're an Irish citizen or a British citizen, you would either just upload your passport, or you would upload your birth certificate and your national insurance number or your PPS number. If you are an EU citizen, in Ireland, you just need to upload your EU passport. In the UK, you need to upload your EU passport and your share code or your settled status. If you are not an Irish, English, or EU citizen, if you're from a country outside of the EU, you will need to upload your visa. So your valid BRP card or your IRP card. And if it's a BRP, it needs to be like a working visa, one that allows you to work. And if it's an IRP, we are looking for also a working one, so stamp 1G, a stamp 4, a 5, a 6, or an EU FAM. And then, so that proves your right to work, and it also should prove your age. So your age being either over 19 in the UK or over 18 in Ireland. For your proof of underemployment or unemployment status, and also your address, you would upload either a universal credit statement or a letter from Intrio or a receipt from Intrio. Or you could upload a bank statement, and this would prove that you don't have a regular salary coming in, and it would also prove your address. And because it's a bank statement, if there's anything in particular you want to hide or cross out, you're okay to do that. If you've recently been working, you can upload evidence such as your 0-hour or your fixed-term contract, or a P45 if you've recently left work. And yeah, I talked about HireVue already. So the benefit is there's no surprises. You can re-record, you can feel more prepared, and it is flexible. But again, please don't be nervous about doing the HireVue. It is, we don't expect perfection. We just want to get to know you. And some top tips about the program and the HireVue. Let us know about your enthusiasm for the course. Let us show that you understand that the end role of the program, and ways in which you've started to look into the role or look into the data sector independently. Shows that you have some competency in Python or SQL or any other coding languages already, and that you've kind of put some practice behind the learning that you've done, and talk about some opportunity to benefit. So we want to support high potential people who are struggling to break into the industry. So talk about your story, what shows your motivation, and what maybe have been the barriers to getting into the industry yourself. And are you in a place in your own journey to complete an 11-week bootcamp? So thank you very much. That was a lot of information that I've shared over the past hour. It's been a pleasure to be with you all. If you have any questions, please drop them into the chat, or you can send an email to dataanalyticsprogram@generation.org, and one of my colleagues will pick it up. Again, please go to your application and double check that you have progressed as far as you're able. Please book onto a group task either this week or in January. And please start your HireVue as soon as possible, because those do need to be manually reviewed before we pass you through to any other stages. I'm now going to play a video from our employer partner for Forward Roll, and she will talk about her experience working as a data analyst. And then after her, we will hear from one of our graduates from the Data Analytics program. You are very welcome to stay on the call and listen, or you can always come back to this video and rewatch any part at any point. If you've got any questions, you can pop them into the chat, and I will be back, and I'll be in the chat, and I can answer anything that you may need. Otherwise, I will see you on a group task really soon on Zoom, and I wish you all the very best in your application, and thank you for your time.
Give you a reminder, so Sophie Page is a business manager at Forward Roll Recruitment, and she's going to be talking a bit about experience and kind of the data analyst role and field. So just going to add you to the stream, Sophie. Hi, Sophie. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us today. I think it's going to be really valuable for our learners to kind of hear the employer aspect of the data analyst world. So do you have the questions with you? No?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great.
So to give a bit of context, so I'm a recruitment consultant. So I work for an agency, and basically I specialize in data and analytics. So getting people jobs in data analytics, basically. So the types of roles that we work on can be anything around data, basically. I personally would do anything from a business intelligence analyst, a marketing analyst, a customer analyst, some data science roles, some digital analytics roles, anything around that kind of analytics and insight space. And then we also do roles which are more, I guess, the back end of data. So your data engineering, your data development, data architecture, and that sort of thing. So whatever area that you're interested in is stuff that we could potentially help with. So I joined the business about 7 years ago. So I've got quite an insight into the market, the recruitment market and the job market within data and analytics. So obviously I'm not actually doing that ourselves, but I can give you some good tips on kind of how to go about it when you're going out to get a role and that sort of thing, and how to get into it. So anything that you can do extra is a positive. So my things that would be doing on this course are all great, but do more. That's my biggest thing. Like, always just do more. The more you've got on your CV, if you haven't got the work experience, you haven't got the work experience. There's nothing you can do about that until you get the experience. The more you do, the more you're going to get it. It shows your proactiveness. It shows that you're willing to learn, and you're putting that extra graft in and that extra work to give you that extra little oomph going into a role or going into an interview. It will mean that you will feel more confident in talking about things. You might not be an expert. Maybe you've done a course in, I don't know, a Google Analytics, or you've done some extra work on your own in your own time using SQL, using some dummy data, or whatever it might be. That is going to look really good for you. So think outside the box. Don't think, okay, I've got this course under my belt, I'm going to go get a job. It's the extra bits as well that are going to really, really help you. Have a read through different types of job specs. Go on Indeed, type in analyst, type in data scientist, type in data engineer, type in marketing analyst, customer analyst, whatever it might be, all of these different roles, and you'll start building up a bit more of an understanding of what they actually entail, and you'll start seeing the keywords, you'll start seeing the tools that they use. They're the tools that you then want to go and look more into. There's so many free courses out there that even if you just do like a half an hour beginner's course, it means that you can then go into an interview and you'll be able to talk slightly more confidently, or if you hear a word, you might not be thrown off as much because you'll have a bit more context and a bit more understanding around it. And then I guess the other main thing is when you're going into that career is just being really open-minded about it. Actually, you might have a specific route that you want to go down, but really it's getting that experience within the data spectrum and trying out different areas and keeping it quite broad. And then over time you might become more specific in an area. But it's almost like not being fussy, because you should never sell yourself short, but be open to different opportunities and think about the long-term aspect of it rather than just the initial thing that you're necessarily looking at. It's just building up that experience over time. And that's about it really. I've whizzed through that really quickly. So I don't know if that helps or if there's any questions or anything. Sorry, I can't hear you.
My bad. Sorry, I was on mute. That was really useful, and I think the thing that I really liked was how you talked about it's great to do this boot camp, but it's also great to keep going and learning more and doing more than just the boot camp, because there's so much knowledge. So it's to really improve your employability profile, keep learning, keep doing more. Since we have her on the screen, since we have Sophie on the screen right now, does anyone have any questions for her? This is like the best time for you to get any kind of valuable insight or knowledge that you might not have right now, but that you want to know about. So yeah, I'll give it like 30 seconds to start, put it in the chat, and then Sophie will be happy to answer. So we had a learner say, how else can you get experience other than courses?
So in terms of actual work experience, it is hard because it's getting that first job. It's always hard, no matter what field you're in. The best way, you can look at internships and so on. I think the courses are great, and this type of course is brilliant because you are hands-on with the stuff as well. It's not just theoretical, you're actually doing the doing, so you've got a bit more context around it. But it's like I said, it's almost not being fussy with that first role that you go into. If you're going into a data admin role, you might not be like, oh, this isn't machine learning or analytics, but you're going to be starting to get some of that commercial experience with the type of roles that you want to be. You're going to be working alongside the analysts, you're going to be working with the data engineers, you're going to have access to them, so it gives you that foot in the door. And you might be there for 6 months. Realistically, you might go into that role, be there for 6 months, a year. You're going into it, it's a stepping stone in the right direction. It's the first step of your career. You're putting yourself forward for something, and you're gonna gain relevant experience from it. So it's just being really open and not, if you go and jump into a data science role straight away, brilliant, but that's not always the way. So it's just thinking about other ways that you can get that, start building up that experience from the bottom. And there's so many things online where you can, I always forget the name of it. I think it's called like Kaggle, something like that, where basically you have access to like loads of data sets and you can do your own mini projects. So it just gives you more to talk about when on your CV, when you go into interviews, because even though you're not in a business, you're working with real data that you can find something out of, so you can give them examples of the types of stuff that you're interested in and have looked at and worked on.
Yeah, and I guess a question for me is, so let's just say for these applicants, they've just got their first ever data analytics job. What would you say? I know you gave some top tips earlier, but for that person who's just now freshly in the industry and he's going to start she's going to start her first few weeks in the role, what are some tips you would say for someone who is feeling a little bit nervous and feels like they don't really know what to expect?
So in that sense, I say a lot of the time to more junior candidates or people who are going into a role that's like a shift away from what they were doing previously, is that you now know what the role is about. You've got a general idea of what that role is. You've got a general idea of what tools that the company use. Just spend that time leading up to starting or in your first few weeks of just putting that extra little bit of work in again. So it's, I'm going into this company and they use Tableau, and you've only ever learned a bit of Power BI. So take that time to go and read up in your spare time and do a little bit more work around Tableau, watch some YouTube videos on it, or do, whatever it is, just to get you a little bit more confidence. So then when you do go into the role and Tableau comes up on your screen, it's not the first time you've seen it, and it's going to be slightly less daunting. You're still going to have loads to learn, of course you will, but it's going to be a slightly less daunting because you've got a little bit of familiarity with it.
Yeah, and I think it's good for anyone who's kind of nervous. It's completely normal. Everyone starts at this kind of level at the bottom, but then they make their way slowly up through more and more experience. I'm going to give a final kind of like 10 seconds if anyone has any last minute questions. If not, we will thank Sophie so much for coming and let her go on with her day. So 10 seconds, I'm counting down. 10, 9.
I've got one more thing to add that I think is really important as well, is don't be put off by job specs. Like, be realistic. Don't go in when you've never had a data analytics role before applying for a head of data role, because you're not going to get it. But if you see a role and it's something that looks really interesting to you, and it's within your salary range, maybe a little bit more, and you're like, oh, I could if I really put my mind to it, I could probably do this. I've got some of the transferable skills. don't be afraid to apply to it. Just make sure that your CV is relevant for the role, and you don't need to do a full cover letter, but maybe just at the top of your CV explain why you're interested in the role and why you think you'd be right for it. Because so many people I speak to are like, oh, I saw that role, but I didn't apply it because I don't have 2 years experience. It's like, just apply anyway, because you might get the job. So just don't be afraid and just go for it.
Yeah, a lot of the time employers are not looking for 100% match with the specs anyway. So like Sophie said, if you're interested and it relates to you and you think you've got like at least, I don't know, 70, 75, 80% of what's on the job spec, just apply.
Yeah, definitely. I say a lot of the time to my clients, when I'm talking to them about a new job that they're looking to fill, is on this spec you're asking for a lot. What are the top 3 things that are your non-negotiables? And everything else doesn't matter. When you really put it down to them, there's normally only a couple of things in there that they really, really need. The rest of it is just a nice wish list, which they rarely get someone that ticks all the boxes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's really useful to hear, because some of us are really self-critical on ourselves, and we just be like, no, we don't 100%, I'm not applying for that. So that's really interesting to hear and helpful to hear about that aspect of applying for data analyst roles. I don't think there's any other further questions, but if there is, just put it in the chat, and I'm sure Sophie later on will be happy to answer. But thank you, Sophie, again for joining us. It was really insightful. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me, please?
Yep, I can hear you. I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, so it'd be great to hear a bit more about what your experience was like in the program, what you're doing now. I think we're really insightful for the learners. So I'm going to give you the mic and let you answer those questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'll take it one after the other. Why did I decide to do the data camp with Generation? Oh, one thing that struck me when I came across data camp was they have a support program for their learners, especially support after the program, like mentoring. And it's, according to the website then, it was they have an intense support program for their learners. I've been to a previous boot camp before then, and though I had the skill, but because I didn't have that support, I struggled to get a job afterwards. So it was that support that made Generation different to me, and it did work for me at the end of the day. So the second question, what was the program like as a participant for those weeks? The content, the schedule, what I learned. Apart from the core skill of BA, there is a lot of learning in terms of the soft skill and employability, I would say. Interviews, the interview warm-ups, the interview prep, there is a lot to learn for me there. Prior to my experience with Generation, though I've been in education, I've worked in various sectors before then, but I had little experience when it comes to interview. So that was a very weak point of mine that Generation was able to brush me up on. And that was very, 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 very handy for me. So what was my favorite memory from the boot camp? The favorite aspect? Because I love mathematics, and I have a mathematics background. So I like the aspect of the data manipulation and all that. Yeah, I love numbers. Mind you, I will also say that for a learner, the best thing to do is to see yourself as a sponge that absorbs every knowledge. Though the mathematical aspect was very interesting for me, but I was aware of my weakness, which was in the area of interviews. I kept saying it, oh, I would like to know how to be the best in my interviews. So I was constantly working on that. Though I like the mathematical aspect, the visualization, the data manipulation, and the knowledge, I mean, the core knowledge of it, but I'm also aware of my weak points. So the next question, what was the support from generation been like in the months after the boot camp? I would say 9.8 over 10. So the 0.2 is there is an area for improvement. There is always an area for improvement, no matter how good something is. But it is very, very, very good. In the sense that you still continue to have, after the program, you will still continue to have interview prep, interview warm-up. If there is any area that you are not confident with in your soft skill, they are still there to support you. If you want to meet with any of the post-training support, once you drop a mail, they will book an appointment with you and they will support you all the way. So yeah, the 0.2 is just that maybe there's something somebody will think about that they can do better, but they are top notch on that. What have I been up to in the months since completing the boot camp? I'm presently working with Stockport City Council. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm still doing some self-learning. I'm learning R. It's a programming language. Not that I'm required to, but I'm doing it for the fun of it. And I hope to improve myself more as I climb up the ladder in the career. So what does a typical day looks like working in data? For me, we work with NHS because we deal with adult social care. So we get data from NHS. We analyze those data based on whatever the council needs to pull out. So we get requests and we work to meet the request, but we don't really have deadlines. However, we do have quarterly, what we need to produce quarterly, what we need to produce monthly, but there is no pressing deadline for our department. The last one, why would I recommend a generation data analysis bootcamp to someone else? One, they will give you everything you need to know and more to become a data analyst. Two, they will give you what you need to know in terms of interviews, in terms of soft skill, in terms of some things that you have and you are not aware that, or you know how to do that, you are not aware, you know how to do it. Generation knows what the employers want, and they will prepare you based on what the employers want. Also, post-program, they have support for learners. So after the program, even if you have not been able to get a job immediately you complete your program, they will continue to support you after the program, I think until 6 months afterwards. So yeah, that's it. I think that's the last question. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That was really useful to hear. If anyone has any questions for Elizabeth now about her experience as someone who's now a graduate from the program, put it in the chat now. This is your time to ask anything, because you and her can relate on the basis that you would hopefully you would now get on the program. So any questions for Elizabeth, put it in the chat. I do have a question for you, Elizabeth, if you don't mind answering. So how much would you say the things you learned during the data analytics program you used or are using now? Like, do you still use that knowledge? Has it been useful? Just a bit more about that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Apart from Python and Excel, which I was already familiar with before I came to Generation, but I was not using it as a data analyst. I didn't know anything about data analysis before I came to, I can write Python programs, and I've worked with Excel, but I've never used those things as a data analyst. So all my knowledge of data analysis are absolutely from Generation. And I found those knowledge, every single thing I learned, both in terms of the core data analysis, the employability, the soft skill, I found them very useful. Even to the extent that there was a training on what to expect from your employer in terms of, once you get a job, they will also support you on how to relate with your employer, how to put yourself forward for training and things like that, so that you can improve. Yeah, I found it very useful. Thank you.
That's great. That's amazing to hear that the knowledge that you learned on the program you're still using. We have a question from one of the persons on the chat that said, what did you enjoy learning? So I'm assuming that's like during the program. What did you enjoy learning the most?
What I enjoyed most is writing programming language. Maybe because that's one of my strengths before I came on the program. So yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of writing Python programming language, and also the SQL. Yeah.
Great. And we have another question. Someone said, how long did it take you from the day you graduated until you got a placement?
Actually, I attended interview for about 6 weeks. So the second interview was the one that gave me the first job. So I got another offer initially for that second, that was my second interview. So for that second interview, initially they came back saying they've got somebody that was stronger than me. So 3 weeks later, or 4 weeks later, they came back saying, oh, sorry, that person turned the job down, so we would like to go with you. However, I attended interview for about 6 weeks. I think the news of the job came about 4 weeks. Yeah, so 4 weeks afterwards. But that was my second interview, was the one that led to my first offer. So I had another offer after one, which I declined.
That's really great that you got like 2 interviews. Like you're really employability ready. Everyone really wanted you. Someone said, and I know if you answered this, I'm just gonna stop the